So Maya, you've done a lot of research then with electrophysiological stuff.
Yeah, for my like at DePaul, our senior thesis doesn't involve actually doing a research project, so I did a lot of reading on the topic. But the theme for my thesis class was language and the brain, so I we were writing like grant proposals and I focused on the sort of concept of brain to brain synchrony in classroom learning. So,
Huh.
how do brain waves between teachers and students with other students in their peer group align as they learn information? And how do looking at brainwave patterns during moments of recall sort of clue us into whether or not learning has actually happened? And there have been a lot of studies, like especially looking at the learning of like STEM in a classroom setting, and pretty reliably you can kind of see a characteristic, like replicable brainwave pattern associated with like the moment when you learn something and then the moment when you recall that information later, which is really interesting. And it's sort of, I would say, still an emerging field, and definitely limited by the technology. So, um, like part of what was really interesting about talking with Dr. Anderson was that he's doing a collaboration with someone who's like literally developing like a three-pronged EEG electrode that has like a lot better spatial resolution, which is historically kind of a limitation in looking at really local differences in brain activity.
That is all very sick. I've never thought about neural synchrony with like comparing it to other people, like in terms of because like I guess like I've been stuck in the ERP mindset, which is fine. Like I'm very excited to go to grad school to learn other methodologies too. But it's really cool to think that you could, I guess, like that neural synchrony can happen with something as simple as just learning in a classroom.
It's sort
That's
of
sick.
like historically, it has been looked at in animals, but it's kind of the basis of social learning. So, how do animals that can't actually verbalize and like talk to each other learn social behaviors? And there's this sort of theory that it has to do with like the literal syncing of brain activity when animals are in like proximity to each other doing things. And I feel like there probably is like a endocrinological aspect to it as well, where like there's hormone exchange happening, there's like electrical sort of energy exchange happening, and that all gives rise to like whether you connect with somebody when you first meet them or whether you have sort of a stronger bond with one person over another. It can be really linked back to how like literally in sync your brain waves are, which is really cool to me.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome.
So, Aminda, I wanted to ask how you got into like what was it about mindfulness that made you want to start exploring it?
Um, a very indirect route. When I postdoced, I had never heard about mindfulness until I was a postdoc. The lab I started in was just not a good fit for me. It was kind of one of those labs they warn you about, where it was not a good environment. So I was just like a dumpster fire of psychophysiological stress. And so that's when I actually started interviewing for industry. I was just like, I don't want to hang out with academics if this is what it's like. Fortunately, word kind of got out that I was looking to leave academia. And my real postdoc mentor reached out and was like, hey, before you make this move, why don't you come work in my lab for a little bit and just like give yourself some time and space to really be thoughtful about this stuff. She is a clinical neuroscientist. And so she was teaching the clinical practicum on mindfulness-based stress reduction therapy. So she was like mentoring the clinical PhD students who were learning to do that therapeutically. And she was like, you know what? You should probably sit in on this thing I do. Um, I bet you'd like it. So she was just kind of low key giving me free therapy. And it was awful the first time I went. They had, they were really good at it. and I've been doing it for a while. I kind of joined mid-semester. So it was like my first day, they did a 45-minute practice. And I was like, I was a mess. And it was miserable. But I stuck with it. I used to have like chronic daily migraines. And I haven't had a migraine since that semester. That was in 2011.
Wow.
Wow.
So I just responded to it really well. It really helped me manage my stress. It's a skill set I wish someone had taught me when I was a student, which is why I make all my students do mindfulness in class. So that was kind of where I left it. I was just like, okay, this is something that I respond well to. It's good for me. So I kept up a regular practice. When I got my first faculty job in Massachusetts, I went to like a new faculty kind of training seminar that they had at that university where every other week we got all new faculty got together to learn like the systems and different things. And a more senior faculty member from education was presenting on using reflective practices in the classroom. And I just asked her, like, have you ever used mindfulness as a practice? And she was like, I don't know what that is. So we chatted afterwards. I explained it to her. And she teaches for the Masters of Teaching program. And she was like, wow, my students that are like student teachers, right? The ones that are going into the classroom for the first time, they could use this skill so much because it's so stressful when they're doing that. Do you think you could come train them? And, being a little researcher, I was like, ooh, that's a lot of time and resources. I could do it if I can collect data on them. So that was literally the inspiration for my first mindfulness study, and it worked out great. We did different manipulations, and we did the full, like, rigorous 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction intervention. So it was intense. But I got to be interviewed on NPR because of that study. And it just kind of took off with me, and has been a big focus ever since. So I like it because I'm not a clinician, right? All my degrees are in cognitive neuroscience, but people mistake me for a clinician a lot because I do the anxiety stuff. I trained in a clinical neuro lab, and now I do mindfulness training. So for me, like, not being a clinician, I like the research a lot because it also feels like there's immediate benefit. Like, even if my study tanks and I don't get significant effects, I get constant positive feedback from participants that they feel better. Like and that just feels good to do research that maybe is immediately moving the dial for some folks. So I really enjoy doing that research. And yeah, I'm the weird professor that makes everyone meditate for 5 minutes before I'll start teaching. Doesn't matter what class, I do it in all my classes.
Nice.
Yeah.
He hasn't made me do it in our meetings yet, so I guess that's a good thing.
Well, now that you mention it, it's coming.
Right.
Yeah. And I know one thing I do want to get into with, especially with talking about mindfulness and like immediate impacts, because I've actually been in Dr. O'Hare's environmental psych class, and that's been like absolutely perfect for my brain because it's just a lot of new research that's coming out about benefits of nature and being out in the environment and stuff like, or being out in nature, research about the environment. And I also heard through the grapevine that there's a lot of there's blossoming research on using EEG outside and seeing how people tend to like react and stuff like that, and like just all the research about how that could impact people. And I'd really like to continue that. I think that would be a really fun thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It just made me think because since I went to school in Arizona, Arizona is like a big hotspot for like addiction recovery because of the weather there. So I think that it would be interesting to see how, the effect of your environment in that way can kind of impact you.
Yeah, in fact, we actually just speaking of temperature, we actually just read a paper. Actually, and I was leading discussion on that, but I just remembered. And yeah, it's crazy how much temperature plays a role in overall mood and just especially because substance abuse is actually a really big risk factor for having like heat stroke and stuff like that, surprisingly.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so interesting how everything's intertwined. So Jackson, you've done research with both human subjects and animal models?
Oh yeah,
Or
yeah.
nice.
Mainly just the bees. But yeah, no, it's been super fun and interesting. You get really real deep bonding moments when you're staring at a bee inside of a Y maze for a couple hours. So it's
Bonding with the
it's pretty
bee?
fun. Huh?
Bonding with the
No,
bee?
with your friends or our friends
Oh, okay.
in the lab.
You better not get emotionally attached to those bees.
You know, that's what I tell everybody in our lab, but some people name them and you're not supposed to do that because then you get
Oh,
attached and you know,
what's the life cycle of a bee? Pretty short, yeah.
it's pretty short. Shorter for our bees.
Yeah,
Just because we
understandably.
yeah, just because we got it and disposed of them in the freezer for a while, but I'm not entirely sure on that. I don't know a whole lot about bees other than what we do,
Sure.
surprisingly. I'm surprised I haven't looked into that more.
Dr. Black always tells me not to feel bad because if you guys were able to catch them and get them into the behavioral paradigm, he
Mhm.
tells me they are probably in their last 2 weeks anyways, because the young
Yeah.
bees get away.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've gone and observed when they're doing the bee brain extractions. It is fascinating. They have to do it under a microscope with like microscalpels and
Mhm.
extract these teeny tiny, like, I don't know, smaller than a grain of rice brains.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say so.
And
It's a skill for sure.
Kidding.
Because just because there's a time constraint as well, just because we do it on top of dry ice so that it doesn't melt.
Mm.
And so if you don't get it in within the first couple of minutes, then it freezes through and can't do anything from there.
Yeah, I have pictures on my phone from their lab because they always send me like pictures of like bee brains and stuff.
Mhm.
And I would say it kind of looks like a bit like a TIE fighter,
A little bit, yeah, I would
like
say
just the
so.
shape of it.
We call it like the Batman signal or like their little bow tie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
And
their occipital lobe is pretty big, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, not
I
occipital,
believe so. Uh, Ocular.
olfactory bulb. That one.
Olfactory. Oh yeah, that and there's a lot of ocular tissue that we got to scrape away. Yeah, no, it's been a while since I've done it because we are a seasonally based lab because we do a lot of the bee research during the summer. But
oh.
so it's definitely a skill that you got to recall and relearn every winter.
So what is your time like outside of summer? Is it more analyzing data? Is it
Mhm. Yeah, usually analyzing data and doing other projects that we have in the meantime. Like Dr. O'Hare mentioned, we're doing a stress intervention study with mindfulness right now, and in students, and it's been pretty great. We've been running that for a couple semesters now. That project has been accepted for a talk at RMPA this year as well. Um, and yeah, we're just carrying the torch so far. I think we're going to continue with that and collecting data for that in oncoming semesters. Yeah, we're trying to collect more physiological measures because we're trying to get some biopack systems up so that we can collect more physiological data aside from the salivary alpha amylase that we collect from students. And so it's been a journey so far.
I actually remember using those biopacks in Dr. O'Hare's biosite class, and I think that's where I got my first like nugget of EEG stuff. Was that the time that you're like, oh, he's probably going to be a good research assistant? Because I was totally geeking out about the fact that I got to see my brainwaves.
Yep.
yeah,
I
the
still
EEG
have that
stuff is
selfie
cool.
actually. Oh, what?
The EEG stuff is cool. I was in the language and neuroimaging lab at the U of A, and so we did all EEG stuff and fMRI data and stuff like that. I love the fMRI stuff. That was the stuff that I was really geeking out over. And the EEG stuff was really interesting and cool to like set up. And then we were testing like non-words versus words and like the time to distinguish whether it's a word or a non-word, and trying to see how aging or stroke or primary progressive aphasia affected the language centers and which parts of language degrade first and all of that kind of stuff. So
I feel like we accidentally do a lot of language research in our lab just because we tend to stick with words, at least the most recent studies we've done.
And that's a bleeding effect for sure, because a lot of people in my lab are talking about that as well.
Oh yeah, you got a bunch of lab mates getting interested in like taboo language, right?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Oh wait,
Those
Jackson.
conversations are so interesting and fun.
Yeah, that will be fun.
have any of you presented at SFM before, or like another large conference?
I aspire to.
Oh, you haven't yet. That's right.
I haven't yet, though. I have presented at other conferences, though, but those have been more local. I presented at our Utah Academy at the U last year, I think it was. And that's where I'm getting the gender perceptions ADHD study published, actually. And we're in the final legs of that, and it's been waiting to hear back. So I hope everything is going well with that. But yeah, aside from that, over last summer I presented at an advising conference with a ton of people around Utah at their universities and just coming together and talking about what can we do to do better for students and things like that.
Cool.
Nice.
Benson, you've presented at an international conference.
I know, as SPR.
So cool.
It was really fun because it was Society for Psychophysiological Research. It's like the big one, especially for EEG. Just all of the physiological measures. EEG, fMRI was really big at that one. And it was at that time it was in New Orleans, Louisiana. So we got to go visit Bourbon Street and all that fun stuff. But project I presented on was it was essentially like there was a study done by Constant and Kotz that kind of was
The color word flanker task.
yeah. No, and almost the inspiration for our study. There we go.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Because of the color word flanker task. So it's essentially joining a Stroop task, which is where you have to name the printed color, with a flanker task where it has flanking words on top of it as well, like top and bottom. And these researchers found because usually when it comes to conflict processing like that, you tend to see slower processing. And instead, and I think specifically with anxiety, you tend to see more like they get caught up on stuff a lot easier. So it's a little bit like slightly slower processing. But they kind of found an expedited effect where they actually, in incongruent trials with neutral words, they found that people that were higher in anxiety, they processed stuff faster. And so we took that and we wanted to use specifically anxious apprehension and anxious arousal to study that. And we actually did not replicate it, but we've added a couple more people so that we can be up to power. And we're going to be reworking data so that I can hopefully get it published eventually. We're working on his manuscript. But anyway, sorry. Going back to where SPR. Yeah, so I presented that at SPR as a poster.
Nice.
Cool. So what's kind of like the differences that you notice between SPR and RMPA, if any?
Oh, I mean, SPR, I loved it a lot more just because it was definitely more my vibe because there's not as much EEG stuff at RMPA. And I feel like a lot of it was, and especially it was really, really cool because I specifically remember this luncheon that we had where there's tables for undergrads, or it was mostly actually because I was one of maybe I think like 8 or 9 other undergrads that were there. And the rest of them were grad students and postdocs. And so because we kind of got there a little bit late, we were seated with all the postdocs. And so it was really fun to chat with them. And they're like, "Oh wait, you guys aren't?" Because it was me and my really good friend Hannah at the time. Yeah, Hannah, she's graduated now, and they were just shocked that we were there, first of all, and then it was just really cool seeing what life is like for a really heavy research, um, well, heavily involved researchers. And then also just a lot of gobbledygook that I had no idea what they were talking about at the time. But I think in terms of what was better about SPR is that I feel like there's just a lot more opportunities that they've provided to meet with other people and students. And I feel like the atmosphere was just a lot bigger because there's a lot more people that showed up as well. And so it was really fun. It was really cool. They also have a jazz band made up of other professors, which was
Oh,
phenomenal. And it's like they're a jazz slash cover band. Like they do a lot of really fun stuff. And they performed at like the last night.
cool.
Yeah, SBR is a really fun society. It's always hard because it is like home base for ERP researchers. And it's always a couple weeks before SFN. So
Oh,
my lab tends to go to SVR. The other neuro labs in our program tend to go to SFN. But it's always hard because my students rarely get an SFN experience
mhm.
because I'm just so involved with SVR. I'm like a committee chair and everything. So I'm always going to go there.
Gotcha. That's really cool though that there is like a conference that's really more based on ERPs and EEGs and stuff like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's nice. fMRI has snuck in there. They've almost become as frequently presented as ERPs, but ERPs are still the dominant methodology there. But yeah, it's nice. Really focused.
Yeah, no kidding. That's very cool.
And there's another fun story from that one too, is there was a business luncheon we went to, and there was a gentleman that was receiving an award. And but the man that was introducing him, I think he talked for about 45 minutes, something like that, to an hour, trying introducing him. And it was dead silent in the room. And me and that friend Hannah were like, we couldn't look at each other because we were about to laugh really hard. And I had to like pretend to cough so I can drink water so I wouldn't laugh. It was rough, but that was a really fun one.
So been your difference in experiences, Jackson, from presenting at kind of a more regional RMPA conference versus kind of more of a state and like local school kind of conference?
Right. I mean, the biggest difference for me, I think, is there was a lot more people. There was so much more people, but there's very much more diverse range of things that were being presented on, and there's just more opportunity, I think, there. Um, that and it's just super fun, just hanging out with my friends, learning more about different types of research, different areas, and things like that. Um, at the more like local ones, there was definitely a different vibe, I would say, but yeah, no, both were great. There weren't too many differences, but I just enjoyed RMPA so much more just because it's so much more fun just to go outside home and explore a bit and talk to potential professors for like grad school and find different opportunities. And it's such a fun time. I'm so excited for this year.
And is it always in Colorado?
Not always. It
No.
it changes. I think it switches between Albuquerque and Colorado and here in Utah.
Very
Our
nice.
department's crazy. We take over 20 students every year.
Mhm.
So yeah, they just have, there's a pack of us. So the students have a lot of fun. The faculty do too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm sure that's really nice because you're still kind of close enough without having to go, so far to like Chicago, SFN is in Chicago or DC even sometimes and all of that. Plus, I mean, Albuquerque's a great city and Denver's a great city.
Mhm.
And I feel like with RMPA too, it is a lot more, I think, geared towards undergrads, especially. I noticed
Oh
it's
yeah.
just a lot. It was really nice because it had a lot of different classes and stuff that was geared towards like how can we like what information we can get to you guys about applying to grad schools or stuff like that. Whereas I think SPR was very much geared towards it's just it's a research conference. We're going to talk about research.
Yeah, so do they have that like a whole grad fair at RMPA, like a grad school fair with like booths and stuff, or is it just kind of more
Yeah.
like class? Okay.
Do they have a grad fair at SPR or like a big exhibition hall, or is it mainly just research?
Dr. O'Hare, you might be able to answer that. I wasn't really looking for grad schools at the time, so I
Yeah,
wasn't really.
they have an exhibition hall, but it's mostly companies that sell the products. So a lot of the EEG companies are there, other psychophys companies, not so much like like academic programs.
Do you ever like buy things from the companies that you see in the exhibition hall, or do you kind of just avoid that area when you go to a conference?
What's my signature move is I use neuroscan software. It's called Curry. And sometimes I'm really annoyed at features in that software, so I'll just sit at their booth and make them troubleshoot the software for me. But I already own it, right?
Give
They're
a
not
case
trying to sell to
study.
me. It's funny, they like know me by name when they see me coming. Because I'm like, guys, this feature is so clunky, you've got to do something about it. But yeah, I don't think, well, again, we're teaching university, so even the resources to like acquire and like new gear are pretty far away for us.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the people in my department go to SFN or like Arvo, and I always see people coming back from those conferences with like big bags of like exhibition hall swag, but no actual
Yeah.
purchases are ever made.
I think their hope is that grad students, when they hopefully get the opportunity to set up their own labs, they'll like have that in mind of, oh, I saw this thing at the conference, when they get that startup fund and they can buy their own equipment for the first time. But most people buy what they got trained in grad school, right? They're not really looking to relearn everything.
Well, I know Dr. O'Hare was pretty much a beta tester for Curry 9 stuff or Curry. And so she was the one that like especially well for ERP stuff specifically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm an odd duck. When I started in Massachusetts, they already had an EEG lab. They just lost their EEG person. And she had only been there like 2 years. And so the university was like, we've spent so much money creating this lab. The condition of hiring was that I had to use the lab. So I didn't get to purchase my own stuff. So I had to learn their system, and they had just created this software. They used to use their software was designed for medical EEG, for like helping diagnose epilepsy and that kind of stuff. So yeah, there was a lot of learning curve in how to make it work for ERPs and experimental designs and all of that. I know their tech support very intimately.
What is sort of the difference in application? Like, is it sort of a sensitivity difference, or are you looking at different things than like a traditional clinical EEG would?
Yeah, particularly the event-related potentials. So you need the ability to put markers in the EEG data of when stimuli appear, when different responses happen, and then the ability to, window around those markers and average them together to create the ERP components. And so, if you're just doing like EEG, you don't ever have to like segment your data up like that. And so yeah, so they just didn't have the features to like do the kind of stuff that needed to be done. So I literally like they had Zoom calls like this with me of like explain to us what this needs to do because they wanted to, be able to open up to the research market. So yeah, it was a lot of teaching them just like this is like what we have to be able to do with our data after we record it. There's still features that I don't love about it. It's horrible to export. You have to export like thousands of files and then recompile them to use the data offline. It's not fun.
Oh yeah. We have our like qPCR software is like that. We use Biorad, and to get the data off, you have to download like 50 files per run.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
So
we have a
fun.
Biorad as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's funny. These companies, they maybe carry like a couple dozen clients across the world. So that's why they're so expensive, right? Because they have to, survive off of that many labs that they support. But there's also not like a whole lot of motivation to constantly update and keep their stuff current because, again, it's not like there's thousands of people saying you need to fix this. It's an
Yeah.
interesting world to be in research technology.
Yeah. And I feel like even if they were updating things, the second a software changes significantly, it becomes like a whole new learning curve to adjust to that. So in my lab, we definitely use a lot of antiquated like operating softwares and things just because it's convenient and everyone knows how to use it.
Yep. Yeah, Curry pushed an update over the summer that Benson and I discovered a bug they introduced, but it took like weeks of very frustrating data processing for us and me tearing my hair out because I was like, we were doing this last spring and it worked fine. I can't figure out what we're doing wrong. Oh, nope. Turned out they introduced a bug into their software. And they fixed it now because we sent it to them and they realized what had happened. But yeah, that happens all the time when they push updates.
I have so many things I want to tell them about. I'm really tempted to make a list. Yeah, specifically with the oscillatory stuff I've been helping Dr. O'Hare with is there's just a couple things that is just super annoying that I have to like export all this stuff and then adjust it there and then import it back in. And then oh, what was the other thing I was just thinking about? I really want them to do a thing where I can window easier because it's just really annoying how we have to do it.
The joys of technology.
Yeah.
Jackson, what do you guys have to do with the genes, like the genetics end of your guys' research?
What do you mean?
Because I guess no, because you guys do heat shock protein, right?
Yeah, heat shock protein 70, and we do, I forget, it's a BK channel. I don't know, I lost it. But yeah, no, we just look at what uh those genes that are expressed because that's instead of using the fruit fly, we that where we look at the similar genes, but honeybees also express the heat shock protein, and so when yeah, no, those are just the genes that we look at and what are expressed when we're putting them through the behavioral component of what we're doing.
What kind of assays are you doing? You mentioned you do qPCR as well.
I actually have no idea. That's a really good question. It's really funny because we all do like sit around for the data analysis and we do help, but there's not like a whole lot of explanation, but it's really funny because it's the equivalent of like helping your dad work on the car, right? And so yeah,
Sure.
but I'll have to review that because it's been a minute since we've done a beast study. We have one upcoming, so I'll definitely have to refresh on that. But currently, I have no idea.
Yeah, I feel like even though I'm pretty independently working on a project, there will be like months at a time where I haven't done a certain thing. So I'll like go from doing PCR every day for like 2 weeks straight and then not do it for 4 months. And then when I come back to it, I feel like I'm doing it for the first time again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is too, especially just because we are seasonally based, and so
Mhm.
yeah, that is the experience.
Yeah. The lab I work in currently does a lot of mouse work. So it's like a cycle of like every month and a half, I'm starting over from scratch, it feels like, because we are like very sort of regimented according to like the breeding cycle.
Mhm.
So I feel like I'm always like chasing after the data and trying to like get everything done before I have to start over on a new protocol.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited for our upcoming one. We're still working out the procedure right now, but I'm pretty excited for it. It's been a minute since we have done we worked with bees.
What are you guys testing with this new round of bees?
That's what we're trying to figure out. We're probably
Oh,
going to
okay,
do,
got it.
yeah, it's probably going to be a different protein that we're going to look at. We do have like a list of a ton that we're wanting to look at. But aside from that, I'm not sure yet. We might just put it through like a spinner wheel and decide that way. But
That sounds
What
kind of
kind
fun.
of like what are you looking for in the protein?
uh, just reactivity and just how much it's expressed because we do get the bees drunk, and so we're just curious to see how that impacts everything.
So
Because
do
it's like,
you do like multiple levels of analysis? Like you look at like gene expression at like the RNA level And do you guys do like Western blots or like any kind of like biochemistry to look at the
Uh,
protein?
Not to my knowledge, as far as I know, in the most recent study that we did, we've just done the RT-qPCR. In the past, I'm not really sure that there's been a long line of these studies, and I'm pretty sure they've been pretty similar, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'd really be open to exploring those types of stuff. I don't know a whole lot about biochemistry or anything like that, but I think it'd be super cool to go in that route and do those multiple levels of analysis.
Maya, you were a biochem minor, right?
No, I was a bio minor,
Oh,
but I
okay.
took biochem for like my med school prereqs.
Bless
And
your
the
heart.
lab I work in now is very like molecular biology, cell bio, biochem. I also think biochem is really cool. It was like one of my favorite classes, despite being very, very hard. I
Okay.
love the lab.
I'm almost tempted to take it in my second to last semester.
I really liked it. Like I took it my first semester or my first quarter of senior year, and it is a very time intensive class, I would say. I wish I had like carved out more time to study. But like the content is super interesting. And I feel like after taking biochem, like so much more about like chemistry, biology, physics made sense in a way where like I wish I had taken it way sooner. And even before some of my like upper level like biology and neuroscience electives even.
I'm
It's
so
really
scared of
fun.
biochem. I'm so
I am
glad.
too, but
I took Chem 1010 and that immediately turned me off from chemistry. I was like,
I
but
really didn't like general chemistry. Like I'm still scared of it, I'm not gonna lie. But like organic chemistry, I loved. Biochemistry was really fun. I'm hoping I can like squeeze in some more biochem classes before I start school again, because WashU has like some incredible electives that I can take for free since I'm working here now, which is really exciting.
that's cool.
Yeah, I remember in my biochem course, I just needed to know how everything linked up. So I ended up getting like a big poster board and I just like drew out like the processes that happened in the brain and then in the liver and then
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'd be in the library after class, like on one of those huge whiteboards, just like drawing out like binding interactions and like the all the cycles and mechanisms. I feel like it's one of those subjects where you really have to mind map to understand what's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
I yeah,
Yeah,
severe
I
deficit
had
in
to do,
that.
yeah. No, yeah. No, I had to do a presentation on just Krebs cycle and glycolysis and for our molecular neuroscience course. And I was absolutely tearing my hair out. Me and Benson were on a Zoom call during this too, and I was running around like a madman around my study room just because I trying to piece it all together as a psychology major.
Oh my gosh, I was studying that because I'm getting ready to take the MCAT and just going through all of those, like all the names of all the enzymes and all of the substrates and the order of
Yep.
everything is a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Benson, are you applying to clinical PhD programs like in Utah near you? Or are you kind of branching out or what's the vibe?
Trying to branch out. I've applied to two. I received a interesting no from University of Arizona. Because he was saying he just didn't have priority for selecting students. So I'm assuming it was just like a funding issue. But and then he said, um, oh, yeah, he mentioned that like I was like, oh, okay, I'll definitely apply in the future then. And he's like, oh, I'm going to have a higher priority next year. I'm like, okay, I'll apply next year then. Dr. John Allen.
Oh yes, he is a very big guy down there.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that I can maybe get an interview. Um, and then I also applied to Purdue, which is yeah, also with Dr. Dan Foti, but I also haven't heard back from them yet, so I'll be emailing them tomorrow.
Good luck.
But yeah,
Yeah, good
oh well.
luck.
Yeah, thanks. But and also this semester I was fairly strong armed into doing, which is fine, like for applying, because I was like, I kind of want to just have a year off where I can chill and just get ready. But I'm really glad I did it because it was a really good experience, and I got to see how not intimidating it is to fill out the applications at least. Yeah.
Yeah, was that something that was kind of like hanging over you, was like, oh man, this application feels so big? And
Yeah, there's a lot of the unknowns of like, is my CV gonna be good enough? Like, how does that work? What is gosh, they called it different things at those universities, but oh my gosh, personal history statement, that thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Our neuro program early every fall does we call it grad school boot camp, where we put on events every day of the week to hit students at different levels who are considering grad school. But for our seniors, we do personal statement and CV workshops where faculty just like hang out in a room that we reserve for like 5 hours, and students can just drop in and get immediate feedback. So I was totally supportive of Benson taking a gap year. And then he worked with other faculty who saw his CV, and they all were like, why are you not applying, man? So the tides kind of turned on him mid-fall semester. And we convinced him to give it a shot.
Which again, I'm grateful for. It was definitely a good experience, and I was very much, as soon as I started applying, I'm like, I'm not expecting a yes, especially because I'm only applying to two. So that's also been helpful. So I'm not, because yes, I've of course gotten personally invested now, but it's good. I think it's good. It's nice to see that I've at least made it through initial rejection, so I'd like have good things. I'm assuming.
Were those the only two schools that had like a project you were interested in, or what drew you to those two particular?
That's a good question. I genuinely was kind of just looking. I was really looking at Colorado State, but then upon further like looking at it, they were not accepting applications. And then yeah, I was trying to look local first, just because, especially if I was going to go, or I guess like near Utah-ish, just because if I was going to go right after undergrad, I would not have time to save up. And then, of course, I applied to Indiana. But it's just hard because a lot of the programs that I really want, like, I guess because I want to do EEG with anxiety and clinical psychology instead of neuroscience. So it's kind of ish finding a needle in a haystack for what I want to do specifically.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think with them specifically, they're doing exactly what I want to research. So I was like, I'm gonna jump on this, especially Dr. Allen. Like literally exactly what I want to do. So it was one of those things where I found those two and I was like, okay, my best chance of getting into a school would probably be with these two, with what I know. And so that's kind of my thought process behind it.
Yeah.
Those faculty members are in SPR. So I know them both. John Allen is one of the players of the jazz band.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That is so funny. I did not have any idea. That's so cool.
The only academic society I know of that at the end of every conference, there's a concert by the faculty members. They call themselves the SPR Jazz Band, but it's super fun.
That is so fun.
And the people in it are like huge names, like John Allen. He's probably the biggest name in the band. So it's like all these research idols up there rocking out on stage together.
I'm just imagining Dr. Candell in his bow tie at SFN, like playing like playing some kind of music.
Oh, and actually, funny story with that is, so again, we based our research, like our inspiration for the SPR research project was Konska and Kotz. And actually, one of his current students was there. And so she just, she heard me mention his name. She's like, hold up. Yeah, that's my mentor. So she literally like sent a picture of our poster to him, and then he was just like, "Oh, that's interesting." Because again, we didn't find support for his stuff, and we also had more participants in our study, so it's just really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But his lab's in Germany, so it might be a cultural difference between our labs and our participants, especially when you're talking about emotional word processing. German's kind of unique in that field.
Well, I have my fingers crossed for you either this cycle or next cycle.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck. You should consider applying to more places too. I know a lot of people at like in the department I'm researching in now who I think maybe at WashU it's a little easier, but like in the ophthalmology department, there's a lot of people who have joint appointments with like neuroscience or pathology and are kind of just there because it was a lab that had a spot, but like it really can open the door to going to do your postdoc in a lab that you're really, really interested in, even if like the immediate topic of the lab you end up doing your PhD in isn't super aligned with your like main research goal. I feel like it can
Yeah,
be just a wide net.
for sure. And I think that's something I learned after applying is that I think it's definitely like encouraged to apply just to learn methodology. And then when I do my own research, I can do my own stuff.
Yeah. It feels like there's this like pressure to like be doing exactly what you want to do as early as possible, but like I've definitely learned since I started doing research, because I also didn't do research in undergrad really. I did like one fellowship and it was like behavioral science. So I was like, I need to be doing exactly what I want to do. And it kind of worked out, but like my lab is also completely out of the field that I was studying in undergrad. And it's like there's enough of an overlap that it's still fun and it works.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wrote some things down actually.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Jackson, what about you? Do you know where you're going to apply? Or are you kind of just still
Kind
looking
of.
around?
I've identified some professors from neighboring universities and neighboring states. Um, I I found out that a lot of them were accepting students. I'm not sure about some of them, but fingers crossed. I'm looking at Washington State University and Colorado Boulder as well.
Mm.
Those are the main two that I'm hoping to gun for, just because I think their labs are so cool. Um, and I'm really looking for a specific niche in the schools that I'm looking for. So especially in like stress research or psychoneuroimmunology and circadian cycles and seasonal physiology and things like that. Which I'm surprised I found as many professors as I did that are going into those types of things. So I'm pretty excited.
So, Dr. O'Hare, which grad schools are you applying to?
Yeah. So are
Never
you
again.
from Wyoming, Dr. O'Hare?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. Has there been like a big difference between Wyoming and Utah? Well, you've kind of been all over.
Yeah, yeah. Wyoming and Utah aren't too terribly different. Utah's more, population wise, got a lot more going on. I grew up in a town of 500 people.
Oh,
So,
wow. That was like my high school graduating class size.
yeah. Yeah, Ogden's the biggest place I've ever lived. Even living in Massachusetts, like Dartmouth, Massachusetts is not a huge place. There's like 55,000 there or something like that. So yeah. So this is the most city-like life I've ever had, which is interesting. But yeah, no, like culturally very similar, Wyoming and Utah. Maybe the skiing's better in Utah. I'll say that out loud.
Is there skiing in Wyoming? I don't know like why I
We have
never
some
like
holes there, so that's
oh,
kind of the main touristy skiing place. But there's lots of small local places.
sure.
But Utah has a lot of big ski
Oh,
resorts.
yeah.
Weaver State has 3 ski resorts within 40 minutes.
Wow.
It's a great place to ski.
Huh.
Do you guys have are ski teams a thing? Like, is there like college snow sports at Weber State?
I mean, we do
Think
hockey.
so.
Yeah,
Aside from that, I'm not really sure.
there are competitive ski teams, but they're not affiliated with the university.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
they're like, I don't know, sometimes we get Olympic training in our area. When Utah hosts the Winter Olympics, the closest ski run to us is where they host it. So often, like the Olympic ski teams and the Junior Olympic ski teams will train there.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Does your area just kind of turn into a very chaotic madhouse when the Olympics are there?
Well, I wasn't here the last time, and you guys are
Oh,
probably too young to really
yeah,
notice.
that's true.
I've heard enough stories
I don't even
though.
think I was a thought. I think the last time was
Yeah,
before I was
We're here in
born. So,
2004, right?
I think it's
oh yeah,
2002.
no, that's the year.
But they're coming back in 2030.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
2030 or 2032. I think it's somewhere around there.
Yeah, I can't
I don't
remember.
know. But yeah, no, it was because my parents told me all about it because it was like butt to butt traffic everywhere, especially Salt Lake City. Um, and you practically couldn't get anywhere because of it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I know. And there's also I wonder. I'm very curious if they're going to repurpose any of the buildings they currently have that they used back then.
Yeah.
Because like we have like a Olympic arena like that I used to go to for our indoor football league thing when I was a kid.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm very curious.
I would hope so. Like, what are
Yeah.
they going to do? Like, tear it all down and rebuild it? That seems like kind of the standard for hosting the Olympics, but
Hmm.
hopefully it's not too wasteful of a process.
Mhm. All right. Well, we were just at 9 o'clock Eastern, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But does anybody have any closing thoughts before we disperse?
I'll say it was really nice to meet all of you. It's really exciting to have an event like this, and I'm excited to have more panels in the future. Thank you, Tara, for putting all this together.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. And the video will be up on our YouTube as well. I just need to change it to public, so you'll be able to share with whomever, and we'll share it out on our Instagram and website and everything. So yeah, thank you all so much. It was really great talking with you and learning about all the awesome things that you do.
Thank you. It was great.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care, everybody. If you need anything, of course, feel free to let me know. I'm always here. And I know that Aminda's on the council now too, so you have a direct resource like right there. um, but yeah, it's really awesome talking with you.
Thank you very much.